Good morning. As Kate said, I'm Colleen Costello, co-founder and CEO of Vital Vio. I look forward to telling you guys a little bit today about our story. And what I wanted to specifically focus on was the path and journey of introduction of new and emerging technologies, which is really what we offer and what we've learned a lot about in the last couple of years, is introducing a brand new technology that nobody has ever heard of and kind of the trials and tribulations associated with that. Our company offers a safe, continuous white light disinfection suite of products. And what that means is we can replace standard white lighting, like the lighting in this room, and actually disinfect indoor environments like hospitals, pharmacies, and gyms. So I hear a lot of times, that sounds like a great idea. I don't understand why isn't that everywhere. And so the reality is that there's a lot of navigation to be done when introducing a new technology on really what is an unwritten roadmap. And so we've been developing and continue to develop that roadmap of how we introduce this type of technology. So a little bit of history of our company. We were founded by a team of RPI engineers. I am a biomedical engineer by background. Started the company after a personal experience. My grandmother contracted a MRSA infection. I thought, what better use of my degree than to try to address what is the #1 preventable illness in the United States, preventable infections. So we started out with an interdisciplinary team, received some funding through business plan competitions, really set out to address this issue. We received our first seed round through some angel groups here, including the Eastern New York Angels, in 2013. Our goal at that time was primarily to focus on our certifications, get the product into customers' hands of clinical environments, and that's what we did with that early stage of funding. Certification in and of itself for a new technology was a really fascinating path for us. The amount of times I spent on the phone with different departments of the EPA trying to get them to interpret their own 2 paragraphs in a pesticide producing device act is more than I'd like to count. And unfortunately, they had never heard of a technology like what we were developing. So we kind of had to write our own roadmap. What are the regulatory hurdles for this? Is this FDA required? How do we prove to people that this is safe? We're just a group of engineers. Is anybody really going to listen to us? And so I laugh now and say, you know, us as a team of engineers, no business experience, decided to start a company in the healthcare market with a hardware product. And so we certainly learned a lot because with hardware, we have a lot of hurdles throughout that process, as well as in the healthcare market through adoption. So we had successful first clinical trials, places like Mount Sinai, UNC, Duke University, raised our second round of funding to expand our team and get the product manufactured and out there. And that's really when we started to identify the product market fit challenges that we were seeing and how could we really look to actually adapt what was a core technology to scale to make sure that our customers could actually use it in an efficient way and that it wasn't just somebody who had a 2x2 drop ceiling product. That led us to what I'll talk to in a little bit is our newest technology of an individual LED that can now retrofit into our licensing partners' products, which dramatically changed kind of the adoption curve of our technology itself. So currently we have 5 revenue-generating products, and we're expanding our licensing model so that other folks can use our technologies throughout their product lines. To date, we've raised a little under $5 million. We're actively fundraising and actively recruiting as well in the Upstate New York area. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit here was, in terms of the introduction of our technology, it wasn't enough to go out and start pitching to folks about how great this technology is. It kills bacteria at this rate. This is what it can do. Where we really had to start was actually at the founding of our company was the importance of why we do what we do, which is that, unfortunately, this is a public health significant issue. All you have to do is open a newspaper on a given week and you can see widespread outbreaks, whether it's Chipotle, Tyson, Foster Farms, it's obviously hospitals. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chicago Bears, career-ending MRSA infections with their athletes. And so unfortunately, it's a massive issue. And that's where we start talking to our customers, explaining the why of what we do. Because unfortunately, they're not aware typically of how dramatic the surface bacteria plays a role in some of their issues. And so that has really helped us drive really getting our early customer base was understanding how this matters to them and what is the actual problem that we're trying to solve. That was a significant component for us. And actually bringing on, for example, a microbiologist to our team was our best sales asset because we can go in and swab a surface for them and show them why they should be caring about our technology. So we spend about 50–60% of our time on the why, then we get to how the technology can actually help them. So that's been really important for us as we look at the role that this technology plays for our customers. So I'm sure most people in this room are really familiar with this curve, but I thought it really relevant because we've been sort of operating the last several years on my right-hand side here in those target areas of innovators and early adopters. And what we found is that we had to be really specific about kind of being disciplined about the types of people we were talking to. The conversations are very different between innovators and these kind of late majority folks. And we were spending a lot of time sort of on the other side of this curve with folks that are kind of in the late majority, early majority, and they couldn't get enough information. And we were an early stage company, early research, and so we wasted a lot of time with folks that they're gonna be some of the last people to adopt the technology. So we got really disciplined about focusing in this early range of innovators, early adopters, and it's allowed us to gain traction with some top facilities that happen to fall in this place. Duke University, UCLA Health, Mount Sinai, Case Western, all fell in that area, but we had spent a lot of time outside of that area of the adoption curve. What I found really interesting recently, I saw kind of a map overlaid on this, and it was of large tech companies, but it was adjusted for the global population. And what was interesting, I thought, was that companies like Amazon, Facebook, Uber were actually, when adjusted for the global population, still in the early adopter phase of this curve. So it kind of goes to show you how broad, when you look, because we're domestic and international, how much market share there actually is out there, even when you're targeting just this early range. And what we found, given the investment that's needed kind of in our type of technology and scaling it domestically and internationally, we feel comfortable focusing in this area for the next year or two, because we feel that's where we can demonstrate our market value in a variety of different market verticals, and likely we'll look at and acquire at some point in time where that can take this through the remainder of the curve, which is typically what you see with early stage technology firms. And so we've gotten really good at identifying this specific area, and it's allowed us to find more success more quickly with specific customers in different areas. So what I wanted to touch on specifically here was one particular market and just kind of identify for you strategies that we took in trying to be successful, increasing traction. For example, I chose the athletics market because it's something that's been really recent for us, and kind of the stages that it really took to actually start to gain traction in this particular market. Where we started was the efficacy and applicability for this market. So what we found, and this was an intentional strategy, was that we started out in the healthcare space, because if we can use this technology in places like operating rooms, intensive care units, other types of facilities would trust that it could be used in a hospital, therefore medical grade, and it could be used throughout their facilities. So we started places like early research at Mount Sinai, which allowed us to have the credibility to go into other areas like athletics. But some markets, for example, like food processing, we found our hospital studies, efficacy, that was great, but they really cared about really specific dairy bacteria. So we weren't aware of that until we got out there, and so we had to actually specifically test the efficacy of the bacteria that was of concern to them so that it could apply to that market. The next thing we look at is, do our products actually fit the market that we're trying to address? We are an LED technology, so it's actually smaller than a thumbnail at its core, but it can be in a million different types of product SKUs. So we had to really do a lot of market research to identify what's going to be the right product. If we go in there with a recessed can like this and they have none of them, we're not going to be successful. So that required market research. We identified that a T8 replacement bulb was something that was in every locker room across the country in university athletics, and we could be successful doing a quick retrofit replacement. Then what we said was, okay, we could go and call on every possible high school or university that we know, and try to go through our sales process. What we identified was we want to do key accounts. We want to find top thought leaders in the industry, similar to the curve I just showed, and be able to successfully deliver our product to them and then market that technology throughout that specific vertical. And that's what we did with Duke University. We identified that they were doing a brand new athletic pavilion, sold them on the product. They installed our product throughout the entire athletic pavilion that they have there. Loved it, we're excited about it, decided to publicize it. That was a couple weeks ago. We successfully delivered and marketed it, and since then we've had over a dozen professional athletic teams and dozens of university athletics reach out to us just with the earned media of identifying this key account. With our resources, that's a strategy for us. We're not spending virtually anything on marketing and advertising. It was a successful strategy for us. And then what we do, typically the nature of our technology, which I'll get into, is identify what's a partner we can work with in this space to scale. So we've shown that we can do this effectively in a locker room, the customer loves it, and we're getting the inbound interest that we expected. So who are these partners that we can work with? I've listed here QD Brands. Are the largest lighting OEM in the country. They're one of our licensing partners. They supply to a lot of athletic facilities, but also more broadly. And so then we can take kind of our early success and hand it over to a partner, train them, get our technology integrated, and look to further expand that traction in that athletics market. So this was a good example of how we've been successful with this strategy, and that goes across not just athletics, but also food processing, ambulance spaces, the consumer market, and of course, healthcare. So I thought I'd touch a little bit more on product market fit because this has been so important for us in the evolution of our company. We were originally offering end user products, which you can see numbers 1 through 4 there, different form factors you can install basically in an overhead ceiling. And what we found, we chose those because they're kind of the most broad, a circular, square. It's not much more complicated than that in lighting. And so we were able to supply a handful of our key customers that we wanted to supply. But then what we found is there are millions of other types of SKUs. It could be a 6-inch, a 6.5 inch, 4-inch type of recessed can, and we chose to focus on our value, which is the science and engineering of what we do. We're not intending to be a manufacturer or build out our sales force. We're really a technology firm at its core. So we said we have to get the technology to a point where other OEMs can implement it so that we can access their market channel, because there's a significant investment in all the opportunities that there are for this technology. It's a significant investment to go after each of those channels. So what you can see there in 5 and 6 is what we have recently developed and launched, which is our Powered by Vital Vio line. So it's individual either LEDs or circuit boards that other OEMs can implement. So Acuity Brands, for example, has 2 million product SKUs. They can implement our LED in any one of those product SKUs that they choose. And so that has dramatically changed and really expanded our business model, so we can focus on those strategies and markets I just outlined, so we can continue to show traction in markets where we believe the technology to be applicable, but people still want us to prove it out, while also continuing to scale those markets once we show early success. So it's similar to Intel Inside model, we found has allowed us to expand our business quite dramatically. And it did, lastly, on the scale component, the technology for us, that licensing model is what allows us to much more quickly get into some of these markets. So consumer, for example, other questions I get asked a lot is, can I use this for my home or bathroom? We do have 2 consumer products launching next year, an under cabinet for kitchen and bathrooms, and a recessed can to actually reduce mold in your bathrooms. As you can imagine, whole companies go to market just with consumer retail products. That's not what we're doing. We have a really strong retail licensing partner that is launching those products in box stores and e-commerce for us. And so again, we get to leverage what they do best, and they get to leverage what we do best. So very quickly, in a matter of 12 months, basically, in launching our Powered by Vital Vio line, these are the types of areas that we're able to expand into, including combination technologies where we can be synergistic with other spectrums of light. Vehicles, we have our first food trucks coming online with our protection in the Boston area, chicken and rice guys, and obviously all the emergency service vehicle type opportunities. So us being creative around understanding the product market fit has allowed us to really fit the technology to scale where we want it to be, as opposed to making the significant investments, for example, in direct sales forces in each of these areas of opportunity for us. So hopefully that was a little bit interesting about our path around emerging technology. We have a lot going on with our company. I know Nasser asked us to tell a little bit about what we're looking for. We are actively recruiting in a number of spaces: marketing, supply chain, engineering, finance, as our company grows to support our direct customers as well as our finance. We are actively fundraising, and I said Duke was our first athletics. I'd love to have Syracuse University. I'd love to have a bunch of Upstate New York University athletic programs using our technology. So you know, I'm happy to talk to anybody that would have connections throughout that university environment. Thank you.